Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today, so let's start off talking about WWE and talking about NXT 2.0. Now, it's been 4 months since NXT was rebranded as NXT 2.0. This big overhaul of WWE's vision for the brand, their vision of recruitment, their vision for building new stars into the future, moving away from the previous vision and version of NXT, Triple H's vision and version of NXT, and moving towards, I guess, more of a traditional WWE model of developmental. NXT no longer being a third brand, no longer being on a par with Raw or SmackDown. Not that it ever was, but moving away from signing people from the independent scene, moving more towards younger talent with an athletic background and a college background, or a background in sports with the NBA or the NFL, or from bodybuilding or the fitness world. It's been 4 months since NXT was rebranded into NXT 2.0. Now, obviously, with this rebrand, the look of the show changed and young rookies were given television time over veteran stars. However, it's seen the ratings fall since the launch of the new concept. Now, in the 4 months before the rebrand, which included 2 weeks where the show suffered a steep ratings drop with the show airing on Sci-Fi due to the Olympic coverage, NXT averaged 669,000 viewers with a 0.16 rating in the 18-49 demographic. Now, since then, since the rebrand, NXT 2.0 has averaged 639,000 viewers with a 0.15 rating in the 18-49 demographic, a drop of nearly 5% or 4.5% in total viewership, and a drop of 6.25% in the key demographic. Now, last September, the first month of the rebrand, the show averaged 693,000 viewers with a 0.17 rating in the 18-49 demo. In December, the show averaged 601,000 viewers with a 0.13 rating in the 18-49 demographic, a drop of over 13% in total viewers, and a drop of 23% or over 23% in the key demographic. Now, what do all of these numbers mean when it comes to WWE's feeling on the rebrand since then? Well, according to WrestleVotes, of course, reputable online Twitter account with insider information when it comes to all things WWE. WWE, according to WrestleVotes, is said to be disappointed with NXT in its first 4 months. This is what the tweet had to say, quote, "Internally, WWE is said to be disappointed with NXT 2.0 in its first 4 months. Source said they thought more fans would gravitate towards the newer stars quicker than they have. Could it just be too much, too fast? Either way, I don't expect any changes to the concept, ... just yet." Now, during the WWE Q3 2021 earnings call last November, WWE President Nick Khan commented on the revamp. Khan noted at the time that he felt the new concept was working. This is what he had to say, quote, "We think it's all starting the way that we wanted it to start, so we wanted a younger, fresher, in-ring approach. We think we have it. You've already seen some talent from the new NXT elevated to the main roster. There's going to be more of that." Now, this past week, we saw a record low for NXT on the USA Network with 587,000 viewers with a 0.11 rating in the 18-49 demo. The number was down 11% in total viewers and down 26.7% from the same week last year when the show would have aired on Wednesdays head-to-head with AEW Dynamite. Now, this to me, I don't know if it's a particularly surprising story. In my opinion, I think that, and I'm speaking for myself here, you might have a different opinion to me, but I wasn't really gravitating towards NXT anyway, especially towards, to be honest, for the majority of the run on the USA Network under Triple H. And technically, I suppose this is still meant to be under Triple H's jurisdiction in WWE, but we don't really know as he continues to recover from his cardiac events. Shawn Michaels has been more involved. Of course, a lot of the Triple H guys in WWE in the Performance Center in developmental have been removed, whether it's William Regal, whether it's Road Dogg, whether it's Scott Armstrong, etc. They've all gone. And when WWE initially moved NXT to the USA Network, it didn't take long for me to, like I said, to gravitate away from it, because even then it didn't feel the same as NXT felt when it was on the WWE Network, when it was 1 hour and you had the great takeovers. It felt different, and not in a good way. And nevertheless, people still had an affection towards it. And when WWE rebranded it, I always said, I just don't think that they should have kept the NXT name when they rebranded it 4 months ago. I think if they said, you know what, we're going to change that show, we're going to change developmental, it's not going to be NXT anymore. If they just called it something else, right? They've got their, was it NIL, next in line process. I don't know what they would have called it, but if they'd have just called it something else, I think it would have been better, because it's not NXT anymore. And they can call it NXT 2.0, but that sounds a strange show, because eventually you're just going to continue to add digits onto that. NXT had its moment, NXT had its time, NXT had its place, and it had the great takeovers, and it had the great matches, and people will always have an affinity towards that, but it's not NXT anymore. It's a developmental show. And I don't think realistically, how can, you have to look at expectations here. How can WWE truly expect to say, right, the stars, and they might not be the biggest stars in the world, certainly in comparison to AEW. That's why I always felt AEW was always going to win, because you've got a level of, developmental stars or next in line stars when it comes to NXT before, whether it was Adam Cole or Finn Balor, right? But on the flip side, on AEW, you've got Jon Moxley, you've got Chris Jericho, you've got Kenny Omega, you've got Sting, you've got all of these names that, frankly, if they were signed with WWE, they'd be on the main roster. So NXT never really had a fighting chance anyway. Nevertheless, I just don't think you can say to your audience, okay, first of all, those people that tuned in on Tuesday nights, I know you like this, and I know maybe you tuned in, not as many people, but the people that did tune in, this wasn't good actually, so we're going to change it. You're already alienating the audience that did bother to watch. On top of that, where's the draw? Where's the draw to watch the show? The only draw to watch the show is that if you're curious as to what WWE's future looks like. In terms of stars to actually bring you in and watch that show, there aren't any in NXT, because you've told the audience it's developmental. And it doesn't have anything to do with Raw or SmackDown or the overall continuity of storylines in WWE. So you're telling your audience there's really no point in watching, because if you miss it, nothing's going to happen. I think they've maybe become a bit aware of that. That's why they have had in recent weeks, Riddle appear on there, or AJ Styles. And I think we'll continue to see that. And I think we'll continue to see more crossover, because I think that's the way that they're going to build stars and, frankly, get people to watch on Tuesday nights. I think it's a big deal politically as well, because this was a Nick Khan thing. This was a Nick Khan directive. This was Nick Khan looking at WWE's developmental process and say it's not working. We need to do something different. We need to go younger, and it needs to be brighter, and it has to be less grungy and all that kind of stuff. And it's not working. And because of that, we'll see what happens. But I just think it's a case of, you've told the audience there isn't really much of a reason to care, so they don't anymore. And ratings, ultimately, in the past, when NXT wasn't on television, when it was on the WWE Network, ratings didn't matter. The purpose was really to create new stars. NXT's purpose is even more important now. It's to create new stars, but you've also got the pressure of delivering ratings. So they'll continue to tweak it, I'm sure, as the WrestleVote said. Not a lot will change for now, but we've already heard about they're trying to make it edgy, or they're trying to make it maybe TV-14, and maybe that will have people tune in. We've always said when it comes to PG versus TV-14 versus anything, ratings and all that kind of stuff, or content or being edgy or whatever, it doesn't matter. You can have a PG program and it can still be very compelling. And you can have a TV-14 program and it can suck. You just have to produce good content, and ultimately you need stars. You do need stars. NXT doesn't have stars in terms of marketable names, because they're building them. And if they build them to a point where they do become a big star, they'll be on Raw or SmackDown. So you've constantly got this cycle of, actually, how can we really, get some long sustained viewers, because whenever we make a star, they disappear. And I think people are tired also as well. This reflects, I think the audience drop reflects in what's the point in watching the program as well, because every time I've got invested in a star in NXT and I'm watching them before they go to the main roster and they're going to be a big star on the main roster. They go to the main roster, they're either booked horribly or they're released. Look at how many NXT champions have been released by WWE. So again, you're telling your audience there's no point in watching this because these guys are going to be released as well. It's part of the problem. The problem is their own making when it comes to NXT, in my opinion. Now, speaking of problems, Mustafa Ali, of course, requested his release by WWE, but WWE reportedly is not willing to grant Mustafa Ali his release from the company. Now, WWE is reporting not planning to grant Mustafa Ali his release. As previously reported, Ali took to social media this week to request his release from the company. However, a report from Fightful Select is saying that it's not WWE's plan at the moment to grant his request. According to the report, WWE and Ali have been in communication, and Ali was told he would not be granted his release. It was noted that Ali has several years left on his current WWE contract. Now, the Fightful report noted that the term, quote, value was brought up a lot in their discussions, although there wasn't any specifics. Now, obviously, this stems from reportedly Ali getting in an argument with Vince McMahon and requesting his release. It's just such a complex situation, isn't it, as well? Because I mentioned before that I didn't think WWE really had a leg to stand on, because at the same time you're talking about budget cuts, at the same time you're talking about, oh, we've got to let you go, we've got to let this person go because we're trimming the budget, sorry, it's out of my hands, right? We've heard all of those conversations about John Laurinaitis having those phone calls, it's budget cuts, sorry, it's out of my hands, it's budget cuts. If you get someone like Mustafa Ali who isn't happy and he goes to WWE and he says, I don't want to be here anymore, I want out of my contract, he can frame it as, well, I'm doing you a favor. You're trying to trim the fat here. You're trying to, there's budget cuts. You're cutting your budget. I'm saving you money. I don't want this money anymore, okay? You don't have to pay me anymore. I'm doing you a favor. So when the time comes, and it will come again, that you've got to release people, because you will, your budget will continue to be cut. I'm offering you a layup. Here you go, let me go. Now, what do they mean by value? Basically, it means ultimately they know Mustafa Ali is marketable. They know that money is there to be made with Mustafa Ali, and their big concern is that someone else will figure out the Mustafa Ali puzzle that they can't seem to figure out. They know there is money in him. They know they can make money from Mustafa Ali. And how insane is that, though? They look at someone like Mustafa Ali and they go, oh man, this guy's so much money. He's money. How do we book him? How do we figure this out? Well, someone else has got a good idea. They're probably smarter than us. And they mean Impact, they mean AEW, they mean the independent scenes. They know that there is value. They said it themselves, there is value in Mustafa Ali. But their brain trust, whether it's Vince McMahon, whether it's Bruce Pritchard, whether it's their millions of writers they have, aren't smart enough to figure it out. And doesn't that speak volumes about the creative process in WWE? That they know a talent they have could make so much money for them, but they don't know how to do it. Yet they know other companies have got that answer. So what are they going to do? Instead of allowing their competition to make money in their mind, they're going to keep him and do nothing with him. It's baffling. It's baffling. I still think eventually Mustafa Ali will go, because we have seen this historically over the course of the last few years. Most of the time, when someone requests their release, even if WWE doesn't grant it, and Mustafa Ali might come back to WWE television, Mustafa Ali might be involved in storylines. But come 3-4 months, he still won't be happy. And eventually, when the budget's there to be cut again, there's a talent that's unhappy. There's a talent that wants to leave. And he's offered WWE a layup, and they'll let him go. And it will beg the question, why didn't you let him go before? I would think, and this would be a concern of mine, and maybe it's just a thing of paranoia on my part, maybe it's why I'm not a pro wrestler, but my concern now would be, okay, I've requested my release, and the reason they're not letting me go is because of value. They know I can make money for the company. Now, and they know I can make money for a competitor as well. That's the most important thing. I can make money for a competitor. He, in my opinion, now needs to be careful of whatever I do next in WWE, because I'm not leaving just yet. If they take me back to television or they do whatever, if they devalue me in terms of I'm doing something and they lessen my buzz around me, then they'll be willing to let me go, because they'll let someone go that they don't think has value to them anymore. That would be the thing to be weary about, and I'm sure he's weary about that as well. Finally, Sami Zayn, it's been confirmed, has re-signed with WWE. Speaking of value, Sami Zayn has reportedly re-signed with WWE. It was previously reported in mid-December that Zayn was rumored to have signed a new WWE contract, as his previous deal was set to expire at the end of 2021. But now in an update, word is now that Zayn has signed a multi-year contract with WWE, according to Fightful Select. There's no word yet on the exact length of the deal, but it could be for 3 years that several talents have re-signed for, including Zayn's good friend Kevin Owens last last month. Now, Zayn was said to be, quote, kind of private about his contract negotiations with WWE, but the company made it clear that they wanted to retain his services and a new deal has been reached. There was talk of AEW, and there was talk within AEW of that company being interested in Zayn if he were to leave WWE, and Ring of Honor was also reportedly interested in bringing back Zayn before they went on a hiatus. Now, of course, currently, Sami Zayn is feuding with Jackass star Johnny Knoxville for a payoff in the Royal Rumble match later on this month. He's also the number one contender to the Intercontinental Championship. Of course, Shinsuke Nakamura is currently recovering from a hand injury, so no word yet on when that's going to happen. You know, and Sami Zayn himself, actually, must be said, has actually commented on this. So before I give my opinion, Sami Zayn has said, quote, sticking around and having fun, that's the Sami Zayn way. Now, I've seen some people react on social media that they're unhappy. Oh, he would have been so great in AEW. He would have been so great in Ring of Honor. Maybe he would be. But my opinion's always really been the same when it comes to Sami Zayn, in the sense that I think that, is Sami Zayn, was he going to be AEW World Champion? Probably not, honestly. Probably not. He's a great wrestler. He's one of my favorite WWE stars. I think his segments every single week are highly entertaining, especially in an environment where sometimes entertaining is difficult to do in WWE. But I really enjoy his stuff. I think his promos have become excellent over the course of the last few years. They really, really have. And I really enjoy his stuff. And ultimately, if Sami Zayn is happy where he's working, which obviously he is because he's staying, if he's got a contract that's financially better than what he had before, which I believe is the case, if he's got a contract that's financially viable for himself and his family and helps them, then good for him. Good for him. And it's a big pickup for WWE. It felt like just there was an avalanche, really, of talents not just being released, but when their contract expired, they were out the door. And when people like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and their names and contracts were coming up, people went, it's inevitable. They fit the profile. I said it myself. I could absolutely see them in AEW. So for WWE to actually win those little battles and be able to re-sign Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, it's a big deal because they've got an image to keep up, right? Because for a while it felt like AEW was the place to be, with people like Bryan Danielson's contract expiring and him deciding to go to AEW over WWE. That felt like a big sort of turn in the tide. But WWE's been able to win these battles. So good for them and good for Sami Zayn. And I just want to see more segments of him and Brock Lesnar. They were highly entertaining, and you never know what could happen in the future. But anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts about these WWE news stories in the comment section below. I'll be sure to respond and reply to your comments. Be sure to smash a like on the like button and be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Plenty of more videos coming up in the future. I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.